Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. I'm also the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast, where we're making the paranormal normal. All right, guys. So my question to you today is, where did the Bigfoot legend begin, and how did it become America's greatest mystery? We're going to trace Bigfoot's story from ancient legends to modern investigation. I invite everyone, Bigfoot believers, skeptics, curious, and explorers, to just keep an open mind. So, we're going to go back to the ancient roots of the wild man. We're going to start with the ancient roots of the wild man. Then we're going to go into the frontier encounters and early reports. And then we're going to basically go into the birth of modern day Bigfoot. And then we'll go into the culture and symbolism of today's Bigfoot. All right, so let's start with the indigenous stories from a long time ago, before it was called Bigfoot. So I have a lot of different little clips here that I've looked at. For generations before the Bigfoot phenomenon, many indigenous people across North America have had their own stories, traditions, and names for a largely hairy humanoid creature that inhabits the forest. These stories are very wily by tribe, depicting them as being powerful and supernatural spirits, elusive wild people, or sometimes as relatives, so like kind of some kind of human. So, the Pacific Northwest is the original name for Sasquatch, and it's home to many stories about these big beings. So the First Nations, the term Sasquatch comes from Halkamon, word meaning wild man or hairy man. The people believed that the Sasquatches had the ability to move between physical and spiritual worlds and a protective entity. So there's a lot of people that think that they can travel from place to place through portals or other things, or they can disappear and reappear, or they can cloak. Um, so this kind of makes sense. It kind of goes towards that belief if you're into that. So other stories tell of the Pukwudgie, the wild man of the woods, and another Dezagua, a hairy, forest-dwelling female giant. It's a supernatural figure who can steal the souls of lost humans and trap them in the underworld. It's a cannibalistic creature who kidnaps children, but is also known for bringing wealth. Okay, so in the coastal Salish tribes, many tribes, including the Lumini, have passed down tales of the Sasquatch for centuries. The creature is often viewed as a sense of relevance and mystique. Okay, and the Mulkshoot tribe, tribal members have cautioned against speaking of the Sasquatch, or it might be drawn to you. They describe it as a human-like, furry-covered creature known to steal fish and women. Another Mokala story tells of a Salupu, a hairy child stealing a grass. Interesting. So, again, when I was growing up, nobody really believed in Bigfoot. And then most of the people told me that Bigfoot was just basically, a story to basically get kids in at night from playing in the forest. So that's kind of how I grew up on believing that. I always thought that they were just some kind of myth or folklore uh, that was just out there to scare kids out of the forest, right? So it wasn't until I had my first Bigfoot sighting that I actually believed or became a knower, if you will. Uh, into basically, and then I got into starting to research these things, and the more I've researched, the more curious and the more strange it gets, and the more I just want to do more. I want to learn more about them. So indigenous legends of wild people are not limited to the Pacific Northwest and are found in traditions throughout North America. The Tule River Indian tribe, the creation tale of the Yukut people includes the hairy man who is a gatekeeper of the spiritual world. Ancient pictographs on the Tule River Indian Reservation, estimated between 1800 and 3000 years old, depict an 8 foot tall figure. Okay, so the Lakota Indians. know the creature as Chai Tay. Tag. I'm probably mispronouncing this. Bear with me. I'm really dealing with sinus issues. Or bigger elder brother. In their tradition, encountering a Sasquatch is considered a spiritual gift that brings special messages. Uh, that's pretty interesting. The Obi-Wa people have a word for a similar creature, sabe, which I've heard people call it a sabe, which is used as a symbol of for honesty. The Spokane tribe. This tribe has long told of a race of giants who lived in the mountains. Their story features common elements also found in a modern Bigfoot tales, such as creatures whispering to each other and throwing rocks. Okay, so this is interesting. Near Alaska native groups, many of these communities have traditions of a hairy man described a reclusive and nocturnal figure. Some stories from Yukon River region mention the creature making their territory with upside down, marking their territory with upside down tree roots. So, if you're listening to this and you're listening to Bigfoot behavior from, coming back from all these stories from these tribes, a lot of it makes sense with modern day stuff. I mean, upside down trees, screams, throwing rocks, whistling at each other, stuff like that. I mean, all that's stuff that I've heard, and I know a lot of other Bigfoot researchers out there have experienced. Uh, so, anyways, yeah, this is very interesting because the more you look back at the history and you're trying to compare old stories, the more things kind of align with what's going on now, with the research now. Um, it's interesting that 1800 to 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, these they're having the same exact experiences as people are in the 2025, 3000 years later. All right, so let's go over to similar myths worldwide. You got the Yeti, the Yowie, the Almas. Basically, you got all kinds of different creatures. I don't think there's a continent on this planet that doesn't have some kind of Bigfoot-like creature. Um, so the legends of large bipedal hairy humanoids like the Yeti, the Yowie, and the Almas exist worldwide, suggesting a universal uh, archetype representing humanity's connection to the primal world. These stories tap into deep-seated human themes, such as the mystery of the wild man who lives in the fringes of civilization, bridging the gap between humans and animal kingdom. So, what's interesting about this, the consistent presence of the hairy humanoid across the global folklore points towards a powerful universal archetype, meaning basically similar. I mean, if you look at humans, we are similar, but we're different. We're different shapes, different sizes, different colors, different heights, and stuff like that. And Bigfoots could be similar. I mean, if we really did come up from primates, the more you look at primates, the more it kind of may have evolved from them. The more we kind of look like into the Bigfoot uh, theories, the more they kind of all kind of match. If you look at primates now, a lot of the behaviors they have, Bigfoots have. So let me continue to read this to you. The liminal, yeah, liminal figure. This creature exists at the boundary between nature and civilization, animal and human. It represents the untamed wild that modern humans have left behind, acting as a link to more of a primate past. The projection of humanity, fears, and anxieties, as Carl Jung theorized, archetypes reside in the collective unconscious. The hairy humanoid often gosh, I can't talk today, embodies humanity's fears of our own animalistic and savage nature, a dark reflection on ourselves that we fear losing control over. So basically, what he's saying is that basically if you took the humanity kind of out of us, we might be more like a gorilla or other animal with more primal instinct that basically would make us more animal-like instead of civilized. Okay. Unknown and mysterious. Settled the world expands. As humanity's settled world expands, these creatures reside into the most remote places on Earth, such as snowy mountains and vast wildernesses. They symbolize the mysterious, enchanted territories that still exist beyond the reach of modern society. A cautionary tale. Like many other mythological creatures, these humanoids may serve as a social function as a cautionary tale. They represent what can happen when humanity succumbs to their base instincts and abandons the rules of society. So what they're saying there is basically if you took a human and basically dropped them out in the woods, they would become more animal-like and they might become a little bit more Bigfoot-like, if you will. They would have to hunt. You have to go back to hunting and building primitive shelters and learning how to use rocks to make tools and stuff like that. Uh, it's kind of looking back at human history, if you will, and showing how we kind of evolved and saying that maybe Bigfoot had just hasn't evolved as much as us in this point. Um, like I said, if we kind of split off from them and they are some kind of humanoid creature, and again, take all this with a grain of salt. This is all just theory at this point. Uh, Basically they could be the missing link, if you will. uh I don't think they are. I think there's some kind of humanoid creature that basically maybe never evolved past what they have, or maybe they still are evolving. Who knows? Maybe they're getting smarter. Maybe they're learning how to basically maybe they've seen what we look like and what we do and have chosen not to evolve past where they are. You just never know. Anyways, let's continue on with the research here. So, frontier encounters and early reports of Bigfoot in America. While the term Bigfoot is a modern invention, stories of large, hairy, ape-like humanoids in North America preceded European colonization, meaning when basically they came across the seas from Europe and stuff like that, and began colonized over here. The indigenous people basically continued to have experiences with them. So, indigenous legends of frontier era settled accounts describe encounters with creatures now associated with Bigfoot or Sasquatch. For centuries before Europeans arrived, Native American tribes passed down stories of wild men in their oral traditions, often referring to them by names of translating to hairy man or wild man. These beings were seen in diverse ways, from spiritual entities to early earthly creatures. Uh, so some of the tribes saw them as guardians, including the First Nations, and then that's basically where the term Sasquatch derives from. Tradition view the Sasquatch as a deeply respected spiritual entity and guardian of the forest. Indigenous people of Oregon also tell of the wild men who lurk near their villages. And other traditions call them monsters and tell of malevolent beings. The Lumini people of Washington State, for example, tell of large bipedal stalkers who would abduct misbehaving children. Um, and then basically the other colonies basically shared stories of giant cannibalistic stone giants. So there's old ancient rock paintings, pictographs on the Tule River in the Indian Reservation in California, and they're believed to be depicted of a family of Sasquatch. The paintings, potentially 1,000 years old, feature hairy man and are a key part of the local Yukots tribal folklore. So let's get into the early European settlers here. As European settlers moved westwards, their stories often echoed existing indigenous folklore throughout unusual Sorry. Let me try that again. As European settlers moved westward, their stories often echoed existing indigenous folklore, through usually with less spiritual context, more focused on fear and hunting. Okay, so let's talk about Daniel Boone. He does have a forest named after him out here. And according to family tradition, the legend of the frontiersman claimed to have killed a 10-foot tall, hairy giant called the Yahoo late in his life. The name may be reference to the monstrous humanoids from Gulliver's Travels, or a variation of Cherokee term of the hairy giant Eho. So slippery skin. Okay, so settlers in northern Vermont in the 1700s spoke of a slippery skine, a bear-like creature that walked on two or four legs, was known for throwing rocks, and was impossible to trap. Okay, so let's kind of look at that for a second here. So, Bigfoots are known to do the bear crawl. They do walk on all fours. I've seen it many times. And they also, again, have been known for throwing rocks. This goes back to the 1700s. So, I mean, people have been reporting them throwing rocks at them and walking on all fours for over 300 years. So now we're tracking this behavior all the way back 300 plus years. So that's pretty interesting. In the 19th century, Arkansas wild man in 1851, a newspaper reports in 1851 described two hunters in Greene County, Arkansas, excuse me, who saw a creature of gigantic stature. The body was being covered with hair. The body being covered with hair, chasing cattle. The wild man was seen leaping up to 14 feet at a time. That's crazy. I've actually seen a Bigfoot jump a creek that was probably about 13, 14 feet wide. But that Bigfoot was probably 12 feet tall, just a big black, hairy beast, essentially. Just imagine a giant ape basically running on 2 feet, uh, and then just basically being able to jump really far. Okay, so let's keep going with this. So, Wild Man of California, 1870, east of San Jose, newspapers documented the sighting of a hairy gorilla roaming the Diablo mountain range. And then Theodore Roosevelt in 1880, in his book of the Wilderness Hunter, Roosevelt wrote of a frightening encounter in Washington state, which he heard strange and unsettling noises that he could not identify, which is strange. So, okay, he actually didn't have an actual sighting, but he heard a bunch of strange noises that he couldn't identify. And Roosevelt was an avid hunter, so he would know the noises in the actual forest. Okay, so the capture of Jacko. In 1884, a much disputed report from Yale, British Columbia, claims that a train crew captured a gorilla-like creature named Jacko. It was said to be about 4 feet 7 inches tall and weighing 127 pounds, but it later disappeared while being transported. Huh. Scratching your head, and you're like, okay, that's a little strange. The one that got away, right? Okay. And that's probably a juvenile at that point. I mean, if it's only 4 feet, 7 feet tall, and only 125 pounds, I mean, that must have been a baby Bigfoot. Uh, okay, so 20th century and the rise of Bigfoot. So the legend gained further traction in its modern name in the 20th century, particularly in the northern Pacific. So the Ape Canyon incident of 1924. Miners on Mount St. Helens, and if you know anything about Mount St. Helens, when it erupted, supposedly there was a bunch of dead Bigfoot bodies found, uh, and they basically made it disappear, Big Brother. Uh, but people have been claiming to see Bigfoots up there for a long time. Anyway, so miners on Mount St. Helens in Washington claim to have been attacked by a group of large ape-like creatures that threw boulders at their cabin. This wild, this wildly reported story significantly fueled the legend. Blah. Bear with me, guys. I'm really battling sinuses right now. So the term Bigfoot, 1958, the modern term was coined in 1958 after large, unidentifiable footprints were found in the Humboldt County, California, and publicized by the County Times. Okay, so let's keep going with this. So, after a logging company employee, Jerry Crew found a set of enormous man-like 16-inch footprints in the mud at Bluff Creek, California. The incident receives national media attention and popularized by the name Bigfoot for the mysterious creature. So here's the details. The initial finds: 1958, Crew was working as a bulldozer operator for the Wallace Brothers logging company near Bluff Creek in Northern California when he found strange tracks. Widespread rumors. The crew's discovery prompted other loggers to share their stories of huge tracks they also had found, unexplained, along with unexplained events like 450-pound oil drums being unexplicitly moved. Oh my gosh. I am really struggling. Bear with me, guys. I can't even talk. The name, the name, where did the name come from? The crew and his co-workers began calling the creature Bigfoot and named the gained traction after the local journalist Andrew Gazalsi of the Humboldt Times picked up the story. The evidence. Crew made a plaster casting of the tracks and brought them to the newspaper office. A photo of him holding one of the castings was publicized in the October 1958, and the story was picked up by the news outlets nationwide. Excuse me for a second. Excuse me. All right. Decades later, the incident was revealed to be a hoax, but by then the legend was already firmly established. And I guess in Ray Wallace's confession in 2022, I'm sorry, 2002, after the death of logging company owner Ray Wallace, his family claimed that they had carved the wooden feet used to make the prints. I guess the family had a history of making pranks. Wallace's family stated that the giant footprints were originally intended as a joke, and that he was too embarrassed to reveal the truth after the story gained so much attention. So the debate continues. The Wallace family uh, revelation did not completely end the belief in Bigfoot, as some enthusiasts continue to search for the proof of his existence. All right, so Bigfoot tracks are often found in Bigfoot hotspots. I mean, they faked them, but I mean, if you look back at the history, these footprints have been seen well before that happened. Um, they're probably just looking for some attention, trying to maybe get some new accounts or whatever, and so they basically just wanted to, make a name for themselves. I mean, I found 22-inch footprints. I mean, I have a size 13 wide, and I put my foot next to this, and it's like half the footprint almost. And my foot looks like a little kid's foot next to it. And clear print, unfortunately, was sitting in some water. There was some water in the bottom of it, and if I'd put some plaster casting in it, it would never have dried. And so it just wasn't a good time to do it. But I've found tons of footprints. I have one that broke on me that was about 18 inches and about 10 inches wide. So footprints, and there's lots of people out there with plaster castings of unknown footprints out there. I don't believe that they're all faking stuff. I mean, there are fake footprints. I mean, people unfortunately do that, unfortunately, just to get attention or just to mess with people or just to basically hurt the actual research of these things. But anyways, so we talked about that. Okay. Um, so basically, back in the 1960s and 70s, TV shows, documentary, tabloid covers, and toy lines in search of episodes and stuff and popularity started using the Bigfoot, just basically to get attention, I guess. It became pulp culture icon, and Bigfoot was basically born. Basically, just, I guess there was a lot of toys. I mean, look at Chewbacca from Star Wars. He was supposed to be a Bigfoot, and as more and more people got interested in the subject back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, Bigfoot research was really kind of born, and people started going out researching these things, looking for them. And as they've done the research over the years, over the last, 40, 50 years, 60 years, now Bigfoot's really kind of come to life. I mean, and whether you're a believer, skeptic, or, excuse me, guys, I apologize, a believer, skeptic, or, you're on the fence or whatever, um, it's, the decision is up to you. I always say, if don't expect anyone to believe in Bigfoot until they've really gone out and done their own research, and that goes with anything paranormal. But once you've experienced one of these things, I mean, I've seen them so many times. I've had so many encounters with them. I mean, I'm up probably 50, 60 encounters at least, where I could say that couldn't be anything else but a Bigfoot. And especially when I was researching Black Star Canyon, day, night, middle of the afternoon, they would just show themselves to me. They felt comfortable with me until I screwed up and crossed an imaginary line, that a boundary with them, where I left trail cams down and I caught them on camera. But I've learned that you got to be really careful, because they allow you to come into their territories to a certain amount, and then it's kind of like Jane Goodall had to, when she first found the mountain gorillas, she had to kind of take her time. It took her, 10 years to really kind of get to establish herself with them and to build a relationship with them and stuff like that. There's a lot of people out there afraid of Bigfoot, and I understand that. There's hostile people, there's hostile Bigfoots out there, and but there's also family groups. If you can find a family group and you can start to build a relationship with them and start to gift and to build that relationship, you can do all kinds of cool things with them. They will become friendly and social with you, and they won't be afraid to show themselves to you, and stuff like that. I mean, imagine leaving something for something, something that's supposed to not exist, and getting something cool back, like a wooden cross, where it's been all twisted around, or you find symbols on the ground, or you find a teepee, or you find a tree structure, or they leave you, something else, and stuff like that. I mean, it's just really cool that they can do that. All right, so could these ancient memories of real hominids, like Gigantopithecus, have inspired these stories, or are they just physiological archetypes with the wild man within? Um, what are these things? Really, you guys really have to answer your own questions on this. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? You know, um, have you ever seen one disappear? Have you ever seen one go through a portal? I don't know. You can basically go through and share your stories down below. Please feel free to. Again, on this channel, there's no judgment. We don't want anybody being mean in the comments. But like I said, if you've had an encounter, we'd love to hear about it. If you'd love to be a guest, like to be a guest on here, we'd love to hear from you and have you share your story. You don't have to be. You can be anonymous if you want to, but the more stories that come out, the more people that kind of come out and tell their stories, the more we're shedding light on this subject, and the closer we are to getting to the bottom of what this really is, what they are. Are they some kind of, you know, paranormal creature? Are they some kind of guardian in the forest? Are they spirit of some sort? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they just like an ape-like creature that lives in the woods? Are they some kind of human relative that is just unknown at this point, or that Big Brother doesn't want us to know about, right? All right, so uh, you know, are they ancient legends? I don't know. The folklore of Bigfoot continues. Whether you think it's a myth, a memory, a legend, just folklore, or something that's designed to keep kids out of the forest, let us know. And we'll love to hear from you guys. So, again, comment down below, and we'd love to hear from you. And we will catch you guys on the next one.